Welcome to the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast, where we remember a time when stacks of cards were held together with rubber bands and Mickey mantles were put in bike spokes. We hope you will enjoy and reminisce as you come along with us as we tell stories about the baseball cards from the Golden Age of Baseball. We will examine the state of the vintage baseball card market and talk to some of the greatest collectors in the hobby. You won't be hearing us talk about any chrome or shiny cards here. Now, to take you on this retrospective journey, here's your host, direct from the shallow end of the gene pool, my son, Mike Moynihan.
Yo and hello everybody, Mike here. Welcome to another episode of the Golden Age of Cardboard podcast. Today you can already see, if you're watching on YouTube, I got my buddy Mike, who is Junk Wax Hero on YouTube and a very good friend of mine with me. Mike, are you excited about today's episode?
I am so excited. This is the most excited I've been for an episode, probably.
Even on your own channel?
Yeah, this trumps that. I have actually done an episode about this very topic before.
Well, for those of you that didn't read and just hit play on your podcast and didn't even care what the episode was about, we get to interview Dick Perez today. And he is someone who's been very influential in my collecting style over the years. I'll tell that story in a second. But Mike, what does Dick Perez mean to you and your collecting?
Yeah, when I was a kid, I was a collector from 1986 to 94, roughly. And my favorite cards were the Donruss Diamond Kings cards. They are beautifully painted, designed. They were just amazing, amazing cards. And when in 2003, as I was moving out of my parents' house, I just graduated college, I was kind of downsizing my collection down to the most important parts of it. And the one of the few things that I kept was my binder of Diamond Kings cards. And when I got back into collecting a few years ago now, one of the things I started doing was getting autographs on those Diamond Kings cards. It's a blast, and they're just the nicest, most beautiful cards. You don't really see anything like this anymore, and it's just exciting to collect them.
Yeah, it's definitely unique. And to me, art and baseball have always been synonymous. Baseball cards, especially, right? I mean, even I remember art of Saturday Evening Post covers, done by Norman Rockwell, and then you've got Leroy Neiman, and I collect a lot of sports art because I just love it. Ron Lewis, even in Upper Deck, they had Vernon Wells Sr. paint a lot of their stuff, and so there's a lot of great sports artists out there. But the reason Dick Perez is so special to me is because I started collecting in 81. Well, the first Diamond Kings were 82, right? And so that was just, and my parents bought me mostly Donruss, ironically. And so I always had the Diamond Kings. I always looked forward to every year who was going to be the Texas Rangers representative in the Diamond Kings, who was going to be the guy that they chose to be the Diamond King. That was always something I looked forward to as a kid and couldn't wait to open packs and figure out that mystery. And then it became, as I got older and I started collecting Hall of Famers and making that a primary focus, it was the Hall of Fame postcards, the celebration set, the great moments, And so I went, oh my gosh, I love everything this guy has ever done. I'm going to just start getting everything that I can get signed by a Hall of Famer. And I have what's called the Dick Perez master checklist of everything I'm trying to get. It's hundreds and hundreds of items that Dick Perez has painted that have appeared on a baseball card, essentially, or a postcard. And I'm trying to get them all signed. And so it's a daunting task and yet a wonderful project that I enjoy doing. I've even done the Hall of Fame Heroes set. That was a huge set for me as a kid. That came out in 1983, and I have all of those signed by all the Hall of Famers that were alive when that set came out. So it's just literally permeated my entire collecting life, my entire 43 years in this hobby, and it means a lot. So the fact that we get to talk to him today, and we're going to get to talk to Mark Evans, who there's a documentary coming out about Dick Perez's life and career. And so we're going to kind of get into that. Are you ready for that?
Ready. Let's do it.
You have your questions ready? Okay. Well, let's bring on Mark and Dick Perez. Welcome, guys, to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
You're
I told my mom.
That's right. Tell your mom. Thanks for having me. Mark, I think I want to start with you because I want to talk about this documentary that you have coming out because it's I've seen the trailer. I can't wait to watch it. You know, obviously it's something near and dear to me, but maybe if people out there aren't, maybe they know just secondhand about Diamond Kings and about Dick Perez's career doing sports art. Why should somebody want to watch this documentary?
Yeah. I would hope, obviously, that collectors and fans of Dick Perez, they're going to want to watch it. But I'm always, when I do a documentary that's biographical in nature, I'm definitely looking to make it accessible to a larger audience beyond just kind of, the people that you would think about. And I think in Dick's case, in the story of this film, it's the inspirational life story of coming to America, by himself on an airplane from Puerto Rico as a 6-year-old and not knowing any English and landing in New York and learning about the country and the language through baseball, and ultimately, having the life and the career that he's had. And that's what inspired me to tell the story, because the way that it all happened, I collected as a kid, loved the Diamond Kings, got away from it for a while. And then my son, who's 12 now, a couple of years ago, he started really getting into baseball, and I guess it was last year, really started getting into collecting himself, and he wanted to see my old collection. So we're going through it, and he's asking about the Diamond Kings. And so at first it just started off curiosity, is what is the story of the Dick Perez that painted these cards? And, I didn't know it. And when I did some research and found out about his life story and found out about the fact that it wasn't just Diamond Kings that this painter did, it's painted the whole history of baseball. That's where I didn't go into this thinking, oh, this is a film I want to make. It was doing that research and realizing, wow, this could be a great film. I should reach out and see if he's interested. And fortunately he was.
How did that first conversation go when you reach out to him? What did that go like?
I think it was just, I found an email for him. I just sent an email address. At the time, my most recent film, Clay Dream, had just come out, and it was getting good reviews and everything. So I made sure to link up to all those reviews so he could see who I was. And it was just a short email to say, I think your story is great. I'd love to chat about doing something. Would you be up for a call? And he replied, the next day or something like that, and said, yeah, let's talk. And that first call, it was, just getting to know each other, but we probably talked for an hour or two and had a really good time. And I think I just proposed, hey, I'm going to be in New York. I live in Washington State, but I was going to be in New York for that same film. Why don't we just do an interview, get you on camera and see how we like it, see how we get along. And we had a good time. And immediately, pretty quickly, I thought I got really excited and thought this could be something pretty special. And he started, sharing his collection of, all of his work, which is kind of we're telling his story and really the story of baseball through his work, all of his work. So as he started sharing some of that with me and archives and photos from when he was a little kid, I realized that we had all the elements to make a great film.
Very cool. Mike, do you have any questions? I know I've been dominating the conversation. Go ahead.
No, it's been short so far. So, Mr. Perez, thank you. This is an honor. Talking about the documentary and Mark approaching you, what made you say, yeah, let's do a documentary? I think this would be great. I'm glad that you did, by the way.
Well, up to that, I had been receiving a lot of fan mail long after I was connected with Don Russ. And they were coming from people like you, Mike. They were coming to get autographed for Diamond King. They were calling, yeah, there you go. And then, because during the time I was doing them, there was no feedback by anybody. You guys were little kids, I guess, and we didn't have well, I guess we had emails, but I mean, it was not something that I was thinking I was going to get, and I did, and I got nothing from no comments from Don Russ themselves. I never got a pat on the back but they just accepted what I did, which I guess they liked. And so when when I started getting a lot of fan mail after the turn of the century, uh, a lot of it was overwhelming. I didn't realize that. I mean, I knew that there would be something different because there was nothing like that before, other than in the 50s, which is an experience that I now recall as being different than regular photograph cards. When I collected Topps 1952 or the Bowmans, I knew they were different. I didn't know necessarily that they were art, but I knew they were different and I liked them. So I would hope that there would be some people out there that would feel the same way about what I was doing. But it was really nice to get all this fan mail, and with life stories of almost of collectors and how they had grown up and they have children and they're sharing this card collecting hobby with their children, whether it's a daughter or a son, and then you get a call from one of those guys who makes movies. And I say, yeah, that sounds, good to me. I just felt that it's another flattering episode in my life. So I'm glad he called.
Yeah, me too. And, I mentioned early in the show about my early collection, and one thing I very clearly remember when I opened my collection back up a few years ago was, here's my Griffey collection, here's my Juan Gonzalez collection from the early 90s, and being excited about those. But then I opened the binder with the Donruss Diamond Kings, and it was just like this, it just hit me like, man, these are so beautiful. The artwork was stunning on them. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really, I mean, when you do 15 years of it, and the first half of that, or a little less than half of that, they were kind of the same, although I just changed the background a bit. I just said, this is getting boring for me. And I decided to then remove those backgrounds and then do some more action figures and changing the whole thing from facial portraits to actual action scenes. And then I started going a little more crazy with color combinations and what have you. My favorite year was 1995. Those were my favorite, and my favorite card of all of them, of all 15 years, is the Chili Davis card. But I went crazy, and then nobody said anything, so I just kept doing it.
Well, that Chili Davis isn't an action one, though. That's a profile.
No, yeah.
Right? He's looking off to the right.
Right. That technique lended itself more to facial, because I wanted to break the facial tones into absolute colors, not just flesh tones, but yellows and reds and blues for cool colors and shadows and things like that. So it really required them to be facial.
I love that. And I know, Mike, what's your favorite year of Diamond Kings?
1992. Fred McGriff here.
Oh, yeah.
1992. That's my favorite design every time I see it. But I also love, what is this, 96, I think, when they were numbered to 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many of those things, I never knew that, really, how many Diamond Kings were produced and put into packs and what have you. I used to get every year I would get my share of them, but and I got my own binders. So, but I never knew the strategy and how they, their market areas that were better than others or what have you. But I'm sure they had figured it out. They had Topps to look at and what they were doing. So, and Fleer and the others. So.
Interesting, because my favorite years of Diamond Kings are 82 and 83, which were the first two. And you were saying how, it probably did get boring. I mean, 84 was a very different, you had the red, white, and blue, the kind of the bunting look.
Oh, yeah.
To those. 85, you had the black border of the set itself, surrounding the Diamond Kings. But 82, 83, like I see those, and I can never tell unless I turn them over, because one's got a black back, writing and printing. The other one's got a blue on the back. And so that's the only way you can really tell the difference, unless you just know which players were in which year.
Right.
Just love those. How much do you get into that story of the Diamond Kings in the documentary, Mark? Do you go through that quite a bit?
Yeah, we do, and we're still making the film right now. There's a little bit of shooting left, and there's quite a bit of editing left. But certainly that's a significant part. That's part of the real rise of Dick's career is, I guess in those Perez Steele years when he's working with Frank Steele, and they start out with the Hall of Fame postcards, and those are a big success. And there's all kinds of just great stories about Hall of Famers that inside of this story with Yogi Berra, who was a huge fan of the cards, getting Dick to sign, the Perez Steele version of the Hall of Fame postcard, to Joe DiMaggio not signing those cards and having a rule that he wouldn't sign them. So we go into some of those fun stories as well too. But certainly, Diamond Kings, the film's called The Diamond King. And those cards were my entry into the work of Dick and the story. So it's certainly something that we cover in good measure.
Well, if you need to add a segment, I'm just throwing this out there. You need to add a segment about a collector who is obsessed with Dick Perez artwork. You can come to Texas. I'll shoot whatever you want.
I'll keep it in mind. I mean, I definitely want to, one of the things that's on the list is, from the collector perspective, certainly that experience opening up that pack in 82 or 83 and seeing a Diamond King for the first time, and just like, what is, like recounting that experience. And then, Mike, I when we talked the other day, you shared with me your project, and I know you've already shared it with your audience, so you might not want to go too much into it, but, Dick would probably love to hear about what this project is that you've got going, collecting everything that he's of a Hall of Famer, right? Every card.
Yeah, every Hall of Famer card. So every Diamond King through his whole tenure with Diamond Kings, all of the Hall of Fame postcards that can be signed, I have the whole celebration set already, minus Jocko Conlon, who died shortly after the set was released.
Yeah, Dick, not just the cards, but signed by the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, that's an effort.
Yeah. Then you have, of course, the great moments, which are I got a few of them here. Here's some guys haven't seen. Like, here's the Frank Robinson.
Yeah, I like that pose.
I love that. You did it awesome. I get to tell you how great of a job you did painting these. There's the Hank Aaron. I love that. Just casual Hank looking off at where he's going to hit his next home run. And then this is fantastic. The Ted Williams.
Yeah, my favorite Hall of Famer
is Ted Williams.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mike's going to love that. He's a Boston guy. So he was
a wonderful guy. He sent flowers to my partner's funeral from Florida. And we played tennis together. I mean, he wasn't that great at tennis, but they say of him that he's the John Wayne of baseball. And no. John Wayne is the Ted Williams of film, because he had that. He really had that. Ted Williams, but he was a nice man.
He really had a swagger about him, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
it was the perception through the media, that he was maybe standoff. It was just that relationship that he had with the media. But I've had the chance to talk to a handful of people, including Dick, that actually knew him, and it's a different story from real life than the media.
From the very first time I met him, he exhibited that he was going to be a good guy. He was sitting across the room in the lounge of the Otesaga Hotel during a Hall of Fame weekend. I hadn't met him. It was probably my first year up there. And he was sitting at a table, and my partner knew the man he was speaking with, who was an agent for the Red Sox. And when my partner's friend noticed Frank, my partner, he came over and he said, "Would you like to meet Ted Williams?" And I said, and he said, "Yeah, we would." So he went back to talk to Ted Williams, and we're sitting on the chair like ready to get up to go over. And he gets up and he comes to us. And it's a moot thing, but I thought that was, I didn't have to get up and walk across. He came across to me. And then the other, maybe the following year, the Hall of Fame had commissioned somebody to do a great wooden sculpture of him and a painting. And it was done by a New England artist whose name escapes me now. But we had met for the first time on the tennis court. And when he found out again and remembered me from the previous year, he said, yeah, you're the artist. And I said, yeah. And he calls his son, John Henry, come over here. Here's the artist. And I'm saying, oh my God, he thinks I'm the guy that did the sculpture of the wood. And he comes over and he said, this is Dick Perez, the guy who does the cards. And those kind of things just endear you to him, because he just was so kind about all these things.
Yeah, there's a lot of these athletes have a public persona and a private persona, right?
Right.
And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of times they're very diametrically opposed to one another, but at the core, they're still good people. And at least you didn't go fishing with Ted Williams. He would have,
Or flying.
Or flying, exactly. But
he would fly up. He would bring his own plane. He would just come up and fly up
to Cooperstown.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess most times that's how he got there.
So, Mark, back to the documentary. You said you're not done filming yet. So, what's your expectation on when the film will be released?
Next year sometime, as far as the film being released. It'll take a little bit. In documentary, there's some things you can control, which I've got access to Dick, which is great, so we can do those interviews. There's other things that scheduling comes into play. There's a few scenes that we want to do that, we will probably be going up to Cooperstown and doing a scene there. And then there's something that has to do with a current major league player that, we might not, it's up in the air when we can do that during the season. So there's a few things like that. And then the editing just takes time because, you can have a schedule, but it's not done until it's done. So that can be, a typical documentary, feature-length documentary is about a 9-month post-production schedule, which includes doing the music and all that as well too. But I've kind of been doing this process a little bit differently, where I'm just editing as I go. And, I think I've made 3 or 4 trips out to New York to shoot with Dick and some others. We did an interview with John Thorne, official historian of Major League Baseball, Peggy Steele, who's very involved with the Hall of Fame and was a co-founder of Perez Steel with Dick and Frank. So there's been some other interviews, and there's some that are still on the list. So anyway, it's a little bit hard to say exactly when it will be finished, but I would, and then it's got to go through the distribution, pipeline as well too. But I would anticipate that it'll be available. We're shooting for summer next year, but we'll definitely have more updates on that as we go. And I'm sure we'll get to this, but one thing that we're doing right now is we're in the process of running a Kickstarter campaign to kind of help fund some of the rest of finishing the film. So the last part of production and the post-production.
Well, just so you know, I'll make myself available whenever. Like I don't want to impede your, production schedule. So I'll just be available whenever you call. Let's get to that next part, the Kickstarter campaign, because I think this is one of the coolest things I've heard about in the hobby in a long time, is what you're doing to help fund the rest of the project. And that's introducing a new Dick Perez art set. So why don't you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, so Kickstarter is something that I've run a campaign on my previous films. It's just kind of one part of the financing puzzle to in my case at least, to do an independent documentary, and it's been good experience. And kind of the way that it works is really what you're doing is you're offering others to kind of join the team in a way. And once people do pledge to this campaign, they're part of the process, because they, I put out updates as we go on. And so they get to see like a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So that's always been fun to kind of build that audience as we go. But in turn of a pledge for a certain dollar amount, you offer up rewards. And a lot of times, the common rewards are in the film business. You give a copy of the film. I try to do it like before it's actually publicly available, which is usually the day before, because in the digital age, you don't really want to risk it being out there and just pirated. So that's a reward at the $25 level. But we wanted to get creative with this and think, what is something that the hobby would really be excited about. And so I can't remember exactly how it came up, but I think I just proposed to Dick, what do you think about if we did like a new Dick Perez card set with some including new works. And so and Dick has been open to everything that we've wanted to do. He's been the best collaborator on this project, certainly the best collaborator that I've had working on a documentary. It's been great. And so he just said, yeah, sure, let's do this. And I didn't know he got right to work. And every time I'm wondering, like, oh, I wonder if he's working on that painting. Like that day, I'll see he'll send me a screenshot of the one that he was working on that day. And so he's recently painted Shohei Ohtani, Julio Rodriguez, Aaron Judge. So those are the new current players that are in this set, but also goes back to Babe Ruth and players that Dick has always admired, like Roberto Clemente, Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams is in the set as well too. So yeah, it's a brand new set, limited to 499 sets, and you can only get it through the movie.
Well, count me as one of the first people that's going to be participating in that.
Now you've got to get those and get them signed, right? So
dang it.
Some of it, yeah, you're going to have a spooky time with some of them.
I can get Ted Williams to sign through his cryogenic.
Yes.
Yeah, right. You have to wait a while.
But that is so awesome. Definitely, guys, there will be a link both in the show notes of the podcast and in the YouTube description to go to the Kickstarter campaign, because that'll be starting May 1st. So by the time this video is released, that'll have already started, right, Mark? Is that correct?
Yeah, May 1st it launches. And actually, I think behind Dick, if for people that are watching on video, there's the sketch of what is going to be the new Tom Seaver, which will be the card. You can see part of Dick's process. He already kind of sketched that out, and we'll be painting that into a new Tom Seaver card.
Yeah, I was going to ask about
trouble with likeness. I feel I got to fix that.
Got to get the likeness right still.
Yeah, he's not the Tom Seaver I know, but I've done that a lot, so
you'll get there.
I fixed it.
You also have the judge there behind you too, right?
Yeah, that was the beginning of. Well, I'll finish it eventually, but that was going to be the judge painting that we were hoping to maybe present to him, and when that was before the end of last season. So when he hit his 62nd, that was automatically going to be the painting, because if you look close enough, they'll have some photograph or something that would capture the moment. And we had a great photograph of a pose that I've always liked, where you see the umpire behind the catcher, behind the hitter, the ball and the bat, and it's that will be, so I just stopped doing that one, and I'll eventually finish it, but it's the 62nd home run that he hit last year, and I'm hoping to give it to him.
So I'll tell you all a quick story. I live in Texas, and I'm a Rangers fan, so I went to the game. There was a doubleheader that day, and I went to the first game of the doubleheader. Judge is sitting on 61 home runs, and nope. And I said, I'm not going to go to the second game. There's no point. So I leave. It's a day-night doubleheader, so everybody leaves, and then they let everybody else back in for the night game. First inning, he hits the home run of game 2, and I'm just like, yep, that's about right. That feels about right that would have happened that way. So that's so cool that you're incorporating new current players along with greats of the game in this set. I think that'll make it a lot more attractive to a broader base of collectors, that you'll be able to do that. How'd you work with licensing? Because, you've got Fanatics basically owning everything, and Topps having an exclusive MLB license. How were you able to include logos and stuff like that?
That's one of the reasons that we're offering it, through this Kickstarter campaign. We can, and we have had those discussions to make sure that they're aware of it and everything. But that's, we're not putting these in Walmart. So
right.
Available, for a pledge through the campaign. And what I was going to say too is the set is called Diamond Immortals, and that's playing off of 2 major releases in Dick's career, which would be the Diamond Kings, of course, and then his book, The Immortals, which is just an incredible book. It's a coffee table book. Any baseball fan should own this book, The Immortals. And then there's a supplement, like an update called The New Immortals, which were the new Hall of Famers that were inducted after the first one. So that's why it's called the Diamond Immortals. But we didn't feel like the current players, we can't call them immortals, right? So those 3 cards of Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and Julio Rodriguez have Diamond Destiny on the top.
Love it. You mentioned, Dick, the Seaver behind you. It's part of that process that you go through to create a painting. Do you start with a photograph, or is it like original, in your mind, I have this idea of what this player looks like, or do you start with a photograph and kind of go from there?
Well, unfortunately, I have to start with a photograph. So some of these people, either, most of the players that I've painted are from the past, long gone. And you don't have them as a young player, so you have to rely on photography. What I try to do is, unless the photo is so great, like Charles Conlon photography. I don't know if you're familiar. Okay, well, his photographs were magnificent. In fact, and I did some just honoring his photography, and that's, in that sense, it was okay to do that. But I try to combine photographs and make sort of an image of my own using the head on a different body, even though it might be the same player or a player similar to him. And the backgrounds will change, and I add my own signage. And when you're talking about an outfielder, so you got to work for photographs, but you got to not just copy a photograph. That's the last thing I want to do, and the last thing I want to hear is somebody say that looks just like a photograph. And seems like a pleasant thing to tell somebody who's painting and drawing, but it's not, to me. It's craft. It's not art. So,
I mean, all the old Bowman cards, early Topps cards that you collected as a kid, Dick, they were artist renditions of photographs, right? I mean, I'll throw a trivia question out there. First Topps set to use photographs and not art renderings. Anybody know? 1957.
Photograph, not art rendering?
1957 was actual photographs versus.
Really?
Yep. Prior to that, Topps had used, other than 51, which doesn't really count, but 52 through 56 Topps were all artist renderings, with 53 Topps being very infamous for how beautiful the artwork is. But Topps didn't use that until 57. Bowman, their first photograph set was 53. Bowman color and then Bowman black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I think obviously you have to use something as inspiration to paint your paintings. So that totally makes sense to me. I was just curious about your process of doing that. And so you first sketch something out, like kind of a rough draft, basically, to get an idea of perspective and ratios of where you want stuff within the frame of the painting.
Yes. Now, my favorite way of painting would be just to put the canvas and then just get the subject and just draw with paint. Okay. But that might not be the most foolproof way of making a likeness. You might have a great painting, but and then again, that's not a big deal. People have painted great paintings that don't look like the actual subject. But so to be sure, I do a rendering first, a drawing, and I might paint on top of that, or I might use it under, as a guideline and what have you. Right. So it's basically black and white, monochromatic, and then color as I go along, and then I just start playing with the color a little bit more as I get to the finish. I mean, my shadows in many paintings are cool blues as opposed to just a gray shadow. I try to do color there, even in shadow, because shadows do have colors. So that's my start. That's my to make sure that I get to the end that I want to get to. You can even see, kind of have it pre-done.
You can see in that Aaron Judge too that maybe it's a manager standing up in the dugout next to him. It's still the pencil sketch that hasn't been painted on yet, whereas a lot of the other stuff in that painting has been.
Because one of the ways you paint a scene like that is it would take you forever to get the people in the right places. So what you do is you take your canvas and you grid it with lines, and then you grid the image you're following with lines. So at least you know the directions you're going in. It's not going to give you a tracing thing, but because you still have to draw it. But it will put every subject throughout the painting, in the right place with the right relationship to each other.
Totally makes sense. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about the creative process as you got into the 1990s of the Diamond Kings cards. You talked about how you just kind of got bold with designs, and I'm curious, how do you go from this design here, which is clean and kind of, it was unique at the time, but then immediately after that, it's this really cool, bold, colorful design?
It's not a It's not an evolution. It's not something that it's what strikes me at the time. And you're as an artist, you want to. I mean, I'm in the mood now to change subjects. I'm in the mood now because heroes that I painted have been sports figures, but life is full of heroes. I mean, great ones out there. And I would like not a card set, but I would like to do a collection of my my paintings of people like Martin Luther King's, or the people who had an impact on society and our country and what have you, and the world. So you're constantly looking for it. Look at the evolution that Picasso went through from he was a when he was a young kid, he was a painter of realism, and he winds up with the craziest stuff at the end of his life. So it was always a constant search to express yourself, and it's an idea thing. My idea of what I want to how I want to express myself plays a part in it. So from one, that's when I got a little tired of the initial Diamond King, because I was doing the same design. Basically, they were different. The backgrounds are different, but they were basically the same design. And I just had to move away from that because I think I had more to offer than that particular presentation.
Well, again, Dick, I'll throw this out there. Mike his channel is called Junk Wax Hero, so that kind of makes him a pseudo hero. And so, if you want to include him in your heroes, renditions, then he might be willing to send you a snapshot you could paint a painting off of. But
I think when I met Dick, he was probably pretty close to getting started on this new path of painting heroes outside of baseball, outside of sports. And I feel bad because, he's been, the past several months, he's just been working on these paintings for the movie, which it's great. I'm happy about it. I think you're having fun though, Dick, right?
I am. And it makes me live longer. I'm going to live longer because I still have to do that other thing. But and I'll never stop doing, I'll never stop doing Dead Ball era players, which are my favorite to paint, or Negro Leaguers, which also are a favorite of mine. The uniform today, I'm getting. I don't want to do today's stuff. The masks and the gloves are so complicated that I can't give you a true representation of what a glove is, what a baseball glove is. The uniforms are slick and shiny, and they're colored. It doesn't have the same bagginess and that tradition, which is what I mean. It doesn't make it bad or wrong. It's just that that's where I am. I'm back in the era where baseball were baggy uniforms.
That's fascinating. I would have never thought of that about modern baseball compared to old time baseball, but you're right.
Totally right.
The science there's so much science in baseball equipment that I like a painting with a batter with his glove in the back pocket. I mean, I've got a few paintings like that. Where that's where they kept their glove a lot of time. Or sometimes they just drop it on the field, and the guy from the other team would pick it up and play with it. So
you've talked before about how prolific you were in the 80s and 90s with these, and you were able to just paint them in 4 hours or so. Do you still find it that it's that fast still today?
Yeah, except for the paintings like the Aaron Judge back there, portraiture and poses, and I don't like doing poses too much. But you kind of get good at it. You just know what your next step is going to be. You have your own predictable process of getting to an end point. I never know exactly what it's going to end looking like, but I know it's going to be right because I've done it all the time. So I never go into a painting sure of myself, even though I am. But I still have that hesitancy of is it going to turn out the way I want this to turn out? Sometimes it doesn't, but it turns out better, or sometimes it doesn't, but it turns out okay. So I'll just keep bopping along.
I want to get back real quick to the Kickstarter campaign because, first of all, Dick, I am so thrilled that you're making another set, that you're contributing to another set, and I'm so excited to see how it all turns out, what the checklist looks like. I'm actually excited to see how many players are still alive that I can get signed, like Mark said earlier. Like, oh my gosh, another added. Collectors are always looking for what's next, because you get to a point with any project and you're like, okay, I'm kind of to the real tough ones now. So what can I do next that has some low hanging fruit that makes it easier as a collector to get some W's on the board, you know, in terms of making progress in a collection. But Mark, how long will this campaign go on? If it starts May 1st, is it you're reaching till you sell out of the sets? You know,
it's timed. So it's going to be, I think it's 32 days. Usually you might do a campaign that's about 30 days, but I think the 30th day was a Wednesday. So I think, you know, let's just go ahead and take it through that Friday. So it's about a 32-day campaign. And the way that Kickstarter works is if you have a monetary goal. In our case, it's $30,000. And if you don't raise that, you actually, all the pledges go back to the donor, and you know, the campaign's over and it's unsuccessful. So you only, you know, get the funding if you hit your goal. So our goal is $30,000. And if we do have sets left over, those will continue to be available through the movie. So once the movie's out and there's film festivals that we'll be going to and things like that, if there are remaining sets, they'll be distributed that way. So we're not going to be, you know, putting them online necessarily or anything like that. Hopefully we can sell out during the campaign. That would be great, because that would mean we'll exceed our goal.
Well, what will happen though is somebody will copy them and sell them. I mean, I have so much product out there that I didn't do. They take my art and they have continued the Perez Steel Hall of Fame art postcards.
I've done that. I take them and I print them and I get them signed. But they're just for me. I just print one.
No. These are product. They're selling these.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jail today. Okay, good. I don't want to go to jail.
No, I don't listen. I don't even mind that because it's flattering. I mean, it's fine, but it's the idea that if they're reproducing them, are they reproducing them in a good way, so that it's not damaging the colors of the art that I did? You know, because there is a printing process, and if you're trying to make money out of it,
So I took the Roberto Alomar painting that you had done whenever he got in, and I had a friend print it on some cardstock. There's only one of these that's mine. And
that's
Roberto.
Fine with me.
Thank you.
No, that's fine. No, I mean, it's just what they're using me as the basis for their business, so to speak. And
I am not. I'm using.
And I've tried to deal with eBay, but they're in the business of putting people together to buy and sell. They're going to protect them, and not that they know that they did wrong, but they make you go through a process of, you know, mountainous stuff of documents to sign and proof that you really are being
taken advantage of.
Yeah. So anyway, and I don't mind people doing what you're doing, because you're continuing what I'm not able to continue anymore. It wouldn't be easy to keep going with those cards, because the landscape has changed with the agents, and it started to happen when we were doing it back in the time when we were still doing the Hall of Fame art postcard. They were like, the Gaylord Perrys didn't want to sign for it. Yeah, we finally got them to do that, but it was tough. And
the celebration. Sorry to interrupt you. The celebration set didn't include Mays and Brock because you had that same problem.
That's right, exactly.
They were living at the time. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that I do have a hard time. My guy who actually prints this, the painting is a different ratio than the card. And so it kind of elongates the painting. So if you could just send me one no, I'm just kidding.
Send you a painting or a card?
No, send me one that I can make. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm happy just to continue your art. And I do mean it as the most, I don't know how to say this. Like, I do this to honor what you've given us as a hobby. I'm not.
Well, the whole point is for you to enjoy them, and you know, and I mean that from the standpoint of, I know the mindset of collectors and fans and heroes and all that. I mean, because I was that kind. You know, I'm that way. So I don't mind. It's when, for example, I get, and this is the funniest thing, I get fan mail. and I get fan mail, guys who have asked friends to send me bunches of cards for me to sign, and then they sell them on eBay, signed Dick Perez cards. And after a while, you say, wait a minute, this is the same, even though it's a different name, it's almost the same area, the same handwriting, the same type of, he begins his letters the same way, and it's a different person, but it's not. So I just stopped signing them all together, those kinds, signing them together, because they're just, I don't know, I just think it's wrong.
Well, I have to, so here's like a Bobby Cox that I still need to get signed. And finding that font, by the way, was very difficult to find the font that y'all used for that.
Let me see if you got it.
There's Griffey.
I don't think that font I haven't found. So, I mean, again,
it's pretty difficult.
It's an unusual typeface, and I thought I had it.
Trevor Hoffman.
Uh-huh.
I love your Jeter, by the way. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
A young Jeter. Randy Johnson. And then I'll show one more. This is my kind of sad story. So I had sent this Bruce Sutter to a private signing, and he was scheduled to sign in like a couple of weeks, and then he passed away. And he was there might have been one or two others, but he was one of the few that bought my book. He liked my work. It was very flattering. I never met him. I didn't I never had the opportunity, but it's sad to have seen him go that way. Well, I'm continuing the tradition of, what you did and what you and
I'm not sure you've got that typeface right, but I'd like to see a clearer close-up of it just to see if it's still available.
I'll send you a scan and you can tell me.
Okay, that'd be good.
It's the closest we could find to getting the right typeface.
I chose that typeface because it was very rare, and then I can't find it anymore. Just to make sure, I'm saying, I wonder if these guys are going to find that typeface, and I haven't found it yet. And my fonts, there are a number of companies that have an extensive collection of typography.
What about are you going to do McGriff this year and Scott Rowland? Are those going to get done?
Yeah, they'll get done.
For the whole thing.
But I mean, I hesitate, knowing not, for you, I'll do it, and I just, it's going to be published, so they'll pick it up anyway. I don't want to break up the continuity of that. I've done it. Well, first I did it because even though the set of cards were no longer being produced, my work was still being hung at the Hall of Fame in the year of their induction. And they did that for a number of years, and then eventually they didn't. But I always felt, I don't know why, I just felt compelled to keep doing it. I don't know, maybe it's just nostalgia or what have you. And I also have another thing about Scott Rowland, in that I have this collection of paintings at the ballpark of the Phillies, and
Veterans Park.
Yeah, every time they have a Hall of Fame art club. Cooperstown Gallery, they call it. And I've done, the last guy I did was Halliday, and but I haven't gotten their request yet to do a Scott Rowland. I'm going to have to reach out to them and see if they do want me to do it, because I think they're going to be doing something with him sometime on the stadium to honor him, and this would be the right thing to be doing to present to them. So they still live in my in my world, and I still think of painting them. And I liked Scott Rowland. He was a good person. I didn't know him that well, but he was very cooperative. So I'll have to see.
Mike, what else you got for Mr. Perez or Mr.
Yeah,
Evans?
my last question, Mr. Perez, was have you ever seen somebody replicate your work in painting and have it look accurate, have it look as good as yours or close to it?
Good question. No, I might have tried to follow somebody. Like there was a sports artist named Merv Corning. He was used a lot by NFL properties, and he was a watercolorist, and he did great work. There were a number of. I have my own favorite batch of illustrators. and that's basically, by the way, what I call myself. I call myself an illustrator more than, an artist painter, because I'm doing something that is illustrating a certain event, a certain person, a certain time. And but I haven't seen. I mean, they haven't explored it as much as I have. Exploited and gone to the. I mean, from that first Diamond King to the 1995 Diamond King, the differences are being. I think most artists tend to find their place and they stay there, and they just do it in the same art style because it's confidence that they're going to achieve what they're attempting to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had people describe Dick's work to me everywhere from, he's a realist painter to he's an impressionist painter, so you can't really define his work because it has changed so much over the years.
Yeah, and the one thing that I started doing watercolors was really the thing to go, because these paintings had to be dry to go to the printer, because a lot of the paintings that we're doing was going to be reproduced in a yearbook or what have you. So we had an art show in New York, and we meaning Frank Steele and Peggy Steele and I, got into a nice art gallery, and there was a fellow named Barry Halper, who maybe you've heard of him, okay?
Yes.
He and I became, friends, but I hadn't met him yet, and we said I was told Barry Halper was going to be there, and he's a Yankee guy all the way. So I did a lot of Yankee paintings, and he bought them all. So, but he took me aside, and he knew that these were watercolors, and he said, "Have you ever painted in oil?" And I said, "Not yet." And he said, "Well, you should start painting in oil, because that's where really it is." And he knew that, I guess, as a collector or whatever. And sure enough, I went to painting in oils, and at first it was crude. I mean, I have oil paintings that were published that I say, I put them way down deep in my files. I don't even look at them anymore. I mean, they were acceptable. They did, but it's not what I had imagined myself, an oil painting should be. So I've always credited Barry Halper for opening my eyes to going into another medium to express myself.
That's awesome. I have one last question too, and we'll let you guys go. Thank you again so much for your time, both of you, today. But as you're promoting this movie and trying to get it out there and get the word out, have you guys thought about going to the National Sports Collectors Convention and kind of putting on a little, letting people know kind of what's going on?
Where is it? Always in the same place, or does it change every year?
It changes every year. It rotates between a few cities. This year it's in Chicago in July. Next year it'll be Cleveland. And then the year after it'll be Chicago. So every other year it's Chicago. But next July it'll be Cleveland. So yeah, I mean, you're going to have a whole lot of Dick Perez fans in that room.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's kind of been on my list to pursue at some point. This campaign that we're running will be over by then. But as far as promoting the movie when it's ready, it's probably not a bad idea. If we can get Dick on an airplane,
I have a thought. I've been invited. There's a young artist who James Ferrantino, his name is, good artist, and he's involved very much in the convention in Philadelphia, which is among the first that were of these
the Philly show.
Yep. And I had done that show long when I was starting out. And he says, "You don't do shows anymore." I said, "No, I really don't. I'm kind of laid back now." And he says, "Well, you should try to come to the September of this year that we're in Philadelphia. They're going to have Steve Carlton supposed to be there, and Mike Schmidt, people you know and have painted." And I first I didn't, the hoopla, and they were going to make a special thing out of it. But then I thought, Mark should be filming. I mean, he's talking Diamond, he's talking Collector, he's talking the game, but these shows are amazing. I mean, they have some of the things that they have there I've never seen before, or many people can say that. And that might be a possibility for the film. We might just do that and appear in that particular venue of that show. So, but that's pre-production.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let us know when you're going. Mike and I might show up at that show. That'd be kind of fun to see you walking around doing that. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, you see the production behind the scenes. We'll be shooting.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks so much. Mike, thanks for helping me get through this with
My
Mr.
pleasure.
Perez. Dick, thank you for what you've done for us as collectors.
Good.
Just genuinely, truly, as a 50-year-old guy, your career has spanned my career in the hobby, and it is it's so special to me. I can't tell you how much your artwork has meant to me over the years. You and again, other artists as well, but I just love art, and baseball cards seem like a perfect marriage, and you bring that to a whole nother level of awesome. So thank you. And Mark, thanks for your efforts to make this documentary become a reality. So cool to tell Mr. Perez's story, and just appreciate what you're doing. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for having us again.
All right, everybody get out there, go check the links below. Make sure just go get your set after I get mine and Mike gets his, but let's sell this out. Let's keep this movie on track and get it out there for other collectors to enjoy. Thank you guys for watching, and keep collecting.